Hello! Welcome to Tap That MTG, the show where we tell you everything we know about magic that's probably wrong, but fun to talk about. I'm Shauna.
I'm Leslie.
And today we are excited to bring you another Zendikar Rising Commander deep dive into one of the new decks. This one is called Sneak Attack.
Sneaky.
Shenanigans going on.
Oh, this has lots of awesome shenanigans.
It's crazy. Well, let Leslie explain.
Sure. Well, this commander, first of all, I guess we'll explain what's happening in this video.
In this video, we're going to go over the deck and break it down into our little formula that we're going to do. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then we go through all the cards and how they fit into that formula, and possibly some tweaks that you can maybe make at the end if you stick around. So yeah, it's kind of fun.
Well, we promise you that if you pick this deck up at your local game store, you will have a ton of fun playing it, because we are super excited about this deck just as much as we are about the Land's Wrath. If you haven't seen that video yet, pop over and check it out. But basically what this deck is meant to do is to mill your opponents, which is now a keyword recently, which basically they're going to take a card from the top of their library and put it into their graveyard, so you're going to get rid of their cards. However, this deck has a lot of things that take advantage of things in your opponent's graveyard, whether it be creatures that get bigger based on all cards in opponent's graveyards, or whether you get to look at all the cards in graveyards and just pick one to steal. Would be great. So rogues are really good at stealing things, so this is all about milling your opponents and stealing their stuff and killing them with it. It is so much fun.
It's crazy.
So our commander is Anawan, the Ruin Thief. He is a legendary creature vampire rogue.
Yeah.
For 2 in a black and a blue. For a 2/4. He gives other rogues you control 1/1/1. So he's a lord. That's what they call that. And when one or more rogues you control deals combat damage to a player, that player mills a card for each 1 damage dealt to them. If the player mills at least 1 creature card this way, you draw a card. So you don't get a card for every creature, just at least 1 gets milled, you get to draw a card, which is likely to happen because remember, you've just given all your rogues +1/+1. If you have something in there that's maybe unblockable, it's now a 2/2, so they're at least going to be putting 2 cards in their library, and I believe in their graveyard. Now I believe is it whenever if the player mills at least, so you have to pick a player. You have to pick a player. I was just checking to see if it was each opponent mills, but it's this. So you're going to get enemies when you play this deck because you have to pick.
Choose wisely.
Politics.
Yes.
I love politics.
You're going to do it to me because I play creature decks, so she's going to mill all my stuff.
Let's hope so.
I know it.
Let's hope so. So why don't you break this deck down for us? What does it look like?
So the deck breakdown based on color right now is for black we have 19, and for blue there's 20, and for multicolor it's 11. So kind of half and half there for the most part, with some extras. And then we've got, as far as land and stuff goes, it's got 38 land, 30 creatures, 19 sorceries, 8 instances, 13 artifacts, so a few more than the last one we did, and 1 enchantment.
9 sorceries.
9 sorceries? Oh,
you said 19.
Did I say 19?
That's okay.
I'm sorry. 9 sorceries.
You saw it on the screen. Just look at the screen. Don't listen to us.
Don't listen to me.
But for those listening on podcast, they might want to.
Yeah, exactly. And the mana curve, we were talking about this earlier, it's a little bit high. There's quite a bit in the upper echelons of the curve, but with all this card draw, we're thinking that'll be okay. So we've got 5 at 1 cost, 14 at 2, 9 at 3, not 3 at 9, and 15 at 4, and 6 at 5, and 10 at 6+. So that's at the 4, 5, and 6, that's 31 cards. So a lot. A third of your deck is up on the high end, but you are going to do lots of stuff with those cards.
Yes, so we often say, if you've seen any of our other commander decks, that when you tweak, usually it's really easy to take some land out and tweak with that. That gives you a good place to start. Wizards for this time, they kind of optimize these a little bit more with the land, so I'm not sure that you can necessarily take land out of these decks. Maybe
Actually
with this
put
one,
some good land in.
but
Stuff.
anyways, we have a formula that we're
Yes,
going to go
we
through
do.
today, and our formula really is based around what a typical commander deck does. You'll notice that this one doesn't necessarily follow the formula because it's a little bit different than a typical commander deck. But if you're building your own or you're analyzing commander decks, this is kind of the formula that we use when we're analyzing. You should have
successful.
approximately 15 ramp cards, 15 removal cards, 13 that either tutor or draw you cards, about 12 high impact creature cards or high impact cards, and then about 10 that are filler cards that will either be on theme or maybe they're another win condition that just kind of make all of your high impact stuff better. So that's kind of the breakdown. We go with about 32 lands, between 32 and 35. You can get up to 37, 38 if you need those lands. But around somewhere in your 30s, which is where all of us lie age-wise anyway, right? Like somewhere in our 30s.
Yeah, that's
Wink,
me for sure.
wink.
Oh my gosh.
So we're going to go through this, all the cards in this deck and describe them for you, talk to you about how you might use them, and then tweaks at the end. So Shauna, what's our first category?
Our first category is the ramp category. So the formula says 15 and this deck only has 7 according to us. So that's maybe not the greatest thing, but we'll see how it does. So the first card we have is Arcane Signet. That's becoming a commander staple. It's for 2 and you add 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity. So pretty good.
Another little mana rock. Most of the stuff for ramp or mana generators in this deck are just mana rocks. So we have Commander Sphere, another commander staple. It is 3 and it will tap for any color in your commander's color identity. You can also sacrifice it to draw a card later game when you have enough land, and you need a little bit of card draw, which is nice.
And the Dimir Key Rune is for 3, a little artifact that can be blue or black, and then you can pay blue or black, and it becomes a 2/2 blue and black horror artifact creature, and is unblockable this turn. So it can help you out later on.
Yeah, I love these little rocks that you can use for something else later. So Dimir Locket is also like that. 3 mana cost to come in. It taps for blue or black, and then you can pay 4 mana in any combination and sacrifice it to draw 2 cards. Nice little card draw after.
And then the Dimir Signet is for 2, an artifact that you can pay 1 and tap it and add blue and black. So that is really handy.
Yeah, pay 1 to add 2. Soul Ring, typical Soul Ring. It's in, I think, every commander deck that Wizards has ever put out. I don't know, is it in the Lands Wrath? I can't remember. I think so. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's costs 1 to put out, and it taps for 2 right away. So you can hopefully, if you play this turn 3 or turn 2, you get your other mana rock on turn 2.
Yep. We've seen it happen. Mind Stone for 2. It's a little colorless colorless mana, and you can pay 1 and sacrifice and draw a card. So again, that later on value.
And that's pretty much it for your mana ramp and mana rocks in this deck. The rest of it is just having land in your deck. So we'll see how that goes when we play it. We're not totally convinced that that's a good idea.
Yep.
Removal is our next section. Our formula that we use says you should have about 15. This deck has 10. Again, a little on the low side, but you're sacrificing some of these staple categories for the theme of this deck, I think.
Yeah.
So the first one is Scourge of Fleets. It is 5 and 2 blue, so it costs you 7, but it is a 6/6. And when it enters the battlefield, you get to return each creature your opponents control with with the toughness of X or less from its owner's hand, or to its owner's hand, where X is the number of islands you control. So later on in the game, you have lots of islands out because you want to keep those
2 for
lands. Sure. You'll have at least 2 exactly. So anything converted mana cost X or less goes back to their hand, which is typical blue removal. Just return it back to their hand. Hopefully make them discard it if they have too many.
Exactly. Then we have the In Garuk's Wake, which is for 7 and 2 black, but it destroy all creatures you don't control and all planeswalkers you don't control. So board wipe on one side, which is why it costs so much, but then you can get all your guys in and do tons of damage, and yeah.
I love that card.
Over.
So nostalgic. Necromantic Selection. Oh my God, I can't even read today. I was thinking skeleton, and then I was like skeleton. So reading is hard.
For librarians.
Apparently. 4 and 3 black. So 7 this cost for a sorcery. Destroy all creatures, then return a creature card put into a graveyard this way to the battlefield under your control. It's a black zombie in addition to its other color types. Exile this card after. So you can't bring it back and use it again from your graveyard. But two things I'll point out there is you can only choose something that was destroyed in that way. You can't just choose anything from a graveyard at that point. It has to be just put into the graveyard by this card. And second, it is a graveyard, so that doesn't have to be yours.
Silumgar's Command for 3, a blue and a black. It is a little instant where you can choose 2. Counter target non-creature spell, return target permanent to its owner's hand, and target creature gets -3/-3 until end of turn, or destroy target planeswalker. So you get to choose 2 of those things. Use it wisely.
Options. So Spinal Embrace, this is a super fun card, and it can be used in multiple different ways. It's lots of options here, but it is 6 mana cost. So 3, a blue, and a black. You can cast Spinal Embrace only during combat, which you should always do with instant anyway.
That's right.
But you get to untap target creature you don't control, gain control of it. It gains haste until the end of turn, and then at the beginning of the next end step, so basically end of this turn, or end of whoever's turn it is, sacrifice it. If you do, you gain life equal to its toughness. So there's 2 times you can play this. When somebody is attacking you, or when you are attacking somebody. In the case of you attacking, you would move to combat, and then you could steal something from their side of the board. If it's tapped, you get to untap it. It gains haste, and you can attack with it. At the end of the turn, you get to sacrifice it. So you destroy their creature, and you got to hit them in the face with it, which
and you gain life.
Super satisfying. If they are attacking you, you can punish them, which is where I would probably use this.
She would.
Because they are going to be attacking you with a creature. You are going to say, in response to attackers, I am going to play this instant, and I'm going to take that creature that you just attacked me with. I'm going to untap it, and then I'm going to block with it. So I'm going to kill one of your creatures, hopefully, with it, and then I'm going to sacrifice it at the end of turn and gain life because you just did damage to me. So,
That's right.
That's the way I would use
Tell
that.
us how you really feel, Leslie. Gosh.
Don't attack me.
That'll be me. The next card we have is Aetherize for 3 and a blue. It's another instant. Return all attacking creatures to their owner's hand. Sorry, you're not going to swing at me. I'm going to get rid of all that stuff.
And then murder. I would like to say everyone knows murder. I don't need to explain murder, but if you are new to Magic, that is okay. That is what we are here for. So murder is a 3 mana cost, 1 and 2 black instant that you just get to destroy target creature. Just simple as that. Doing some murder.
It's got lots of different artwork versions of it, so if you haven't seen it, go check it out. Price of Fame for 3 and a black. It's another little instant that the spell costs 2 less to cast if it targets a legendary creature, their commander, and you can destroy that creature. Sorry, that's for 2. And you can surveil 2 at the same time. So surveil is you get to look at those 2 cards in this case and decide whether you want to put them back on the top of the your library or in one or both in the graveyard. So it's up to you. You get to look at it.
Soul Manipulation is an instant for 1 and a black and a blue. You get to choose 1 or both. Counter target creature spell, or return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So the reason it says one or both, if you're kind of like, well, why wouldn't you just automatically choose both? Sometimes you want to play this, and if you had to choose both, you'd have to play it when you were countering a target creature spell, or vice versa. If you didn't have anything to target in your graveyard, then you couldn't cast this. So the things like target creature, anything target, is a choice. So that's why it says choose.
Then we have Enigma Thief. It is a Sphinx Rogue, which I just realized it's actually a rogue too. Yeah. So it's for 5 and 2 blue. It's a 5/5 with Prowl for 3 and a blue. So that means that you may cast this spell for its Prowl cost if you dealt combat damage to a player this turn with a Sphinx or a rogue, which you have tons of rogues. So
it's all rogues.
Yeah, and so it's a 5/5 flyer. So when it enters the battlefield, for each opponent, return up to one target non-land permanent that player controls to its owner's hand. So you kind of have to think about that. Do I want to pay the full price and get rid of something before combat, or do I want to wait till after combat and get rid of something? So it's the typical blue stuff. You got to make decisions.
Got to make decisions when to play things, definitely. And remember, your commander is a lord. He gives all of the rogues +1/+1, so this is potentially a 6/6. Makes that worth it. So our next section is card draw or tutors, which means you get to go searching or you look at the top and choose something. So those are the next section. Our formula says we should have about 13. This deck has about 10. So again, a little low on card draw. But there are definitely a lot. The card draw that's in here, what we've noticed is really high value card draw.
Yeah,
and it's creatures that stay on
too.
there, and your commander has it, and there's enchantment. Anyways, you'll see. Notion Thief is a human rogue, 3/1 for converted mana cost of 4. It has flash, which means you should play it during combat. If an opponent would draw a card, in response, I guess. If an opponent would draw a card, except the first one he or she draws in each of his or her draw steps, instead, that player skips that draw, and you draw instead. So they say,
that's just silly.
I'm going to draw 3 cards, and you say, in response, I am going to flash this in. That hits the battlefield before their draw happens, and now they don't get to draw, you get to draw their cards. It's really, really super mean thing to do.
It is very mean to do. Especially when you hope to get card draw. Sig River Cutthroat for 2 hybrid mana, blue-black. It is a Merfolk Rogue that at the end of turn, if an opponent lost 3 or more life this turn, you may draw a card. So it's just going to sit there and block for you. And so that doesn't have to be, it could be when someone else does damage to them. Could be when you do damage to them, and the end of every turn, if you want. I just realized that. That's really bad.
Should move
That's
that
so mean.
back into the high impact.
That should be in high impact almost. Yeah, it's definitely card draw for sure.
Well, now we're going into our fairy section, which is another reason I super love this deck. I happen to be a fairy lover. Latchkey Fairy is for 3 and a blue for a 3/1. It has flying, and when it enters the battlefield, if its Prowl cost was paid, you get to draw a card, which is why we put it here, because you're probably going to use it for its Prowl cost. So its Prowl cost is 2 and a blue, so you get to pay less for it if you've done combat damage to somebody this turn. So this is something you're going to, not you're probably going to, you're going to, because you've watched this video, play during your second main phase.
If anything, this deck is going to teach you to use your second main phase to play your creatures, so that people don't know what the heck you're up to.
Yeah.
We've gotten good at that. People think it's our end of turn. Oh no, we have stuff to do.
Wait, I'm not done yet.
We have stuff to do. Combat is over. We got other stuff to do. Nightveil Sprite for 1 and a blue. It's a 1/2 flyer, and whenever it attacks, surveil 1. So that's that surveil again. We get to look at a card.
Distant Melody is a sorcery for 4 converted mana cost. You get to choose a creature type, and you draw a card for each permanent you control of that type. I recommend rogue in this case.
Fairies. Depends if you have lots of fairy
It
tokens.
depends, but all your fairies are rogues, so.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, so I recommend rogues, and then you're going to choose cards. Now, again, this one, timing is everything. If you already have 7 cards in your hand and you have nothing on the battlefield that says you have no maximum hand size, if you draw a bunch of cards and then you move to your end step, you need to discard down to 7. So draw when you need to draw, not just because.
With this deck, you might want something in your graveyard.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't know.
true.
I don't
That's
know.
true. It is okay to put things in your
And
graveyard.
it's blue. You got to think all the time.
What to do, what to do.
Pay attention to the game. Open into Wonder. It's for X and 2 blue. A sorcery. X target creatures can't be blocked this turn. Until end of turn, those creatures gain whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player. Draw a card. So yeah, you're making them all unblockable, and you're going to draw lots of cards.
And this is a great card for Shauna and I, fact or fiction. Us librarians like both. For 3 and a blue, you get an instant. You get to reveal the top 5 cards of your library, and then an opponent separates those cards into 2 piles. You put one pile in your hand and the other into your graveyard. You do get to look at both of them, unlike some cards like that, that one is face down and one is right side up. You get to look at both of those piles and decide. Super hard for them to make the choices sometimes.
terrible.
It's like, what do I want to give them? And how do I make this decision hard for them? So I like cards like that.
An heirloom blade for 3. It's a little equipment. Equipped creature gets +3/+1. Whenever equipped creature dies, you may reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card that shares a creature type with it. There you go. Put that card into your hand and the rest of the bottom of your library in a random order. And its equip is only 1 to give it +3/+1. It's pretty darn good.
Pretty darn good. Military intelligence is an enchantment. We like things that stay on the battlefield that give you benefits. So this one only costs 2. Whenever you attack with 2 or more creatures, you get to draw a card. So again, the card draw isn't a lot, but what there's there is pretty good.
It's pretty good. Sure-footed infiltrator for 3 and a blue. It's a 2/3, and tap another untapped rogue you control. Sure-footed infiltrator. I don't know. Can't be blocked this turn. He can't be blocked this turn.
We both
okay?
just can't talk this turn.
Whenever
this game.
it deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So you're making it unblockable. He's going to deal damage, right? So there you go.
All right. One of our favorite sections is the high impact creature cards, because this is when you really start seeing like, what is this deck and what does it do? Our formula says you should have about 12 creatures or cards in your deck that have a really high impact when you play them. This deck has what we figure to be 11. The first one happens to be Lazav, Dimir Mastermind. It costs 2 blue and 2 black, so 4 converted mana cost. He is a shapeshifter, and he's a 3/3.
Hexproof one.
He's a hexproof shapeshifter. So, what does that mean? Well, whenever a creature card is put into an opponent's graveyard, remember, you are going to be milling from anywhere, then you can have this dude become a copy of that card, except its name is Lazav Dimir Mastermind. It's legendary in addition to its other types, and it has hexproof and this ability. So, if there's cards that matter for legendary, this guy keeps his legendary status, he keeps his name, he keeps this ability, but he also becomes whatever creature it is that you decide to steal from them, because rogues.
Yes, basically becomes that.
Yeah.
Gonti, Lord of Luxury, is a 2 and 2 black, a 2/3, a Death Toucher. And when it enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of target opponent's library, exile one of them face down, then put the rest on the bottom of that library in a random order. You may look at that and cast that card for as long as it remains exiled, and you may spend mana or mana of any type to cast. So you look at their 4 cards and get to steal something that you want to play. That's a little scary.
I get all the hard things to pronounce. Sepulchra, Primordial, Sepulchral, Primordial, 5 and 2 black. So 7 mana cost for a 5/4. It has Intimidate. And then when this card enters the battlefield, for each opponent, you may put up to one target creature card from that player's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. So we're getting into the section where there's a lot of things that when this happens or when this comes into the battlefield, you just get to like go into someone's graveyard and steal their stuff, which keeps them from putting it back out, which is super nice too.
Mm-hmm. Consuming Aberration for 3 and a blue and a black. It has its power and toughness are each equal to the number of cards in your opponent's graveyards. So everybody except you. Whenever you cast a spell, each opponent reveals cards from the top of their library until they reveal a land card, then puts those cards into their graveyard. So you're milling them for a whole bunch, potentially, depending on their land, or their, it's going to be bad.
So this is one, too, that you're going to have to keep track of. Don't expect that everybody will just automatically tell you, oh, I just put a creature card in my graveyard. Don't forget to change the power and toughness of your dude. If you're playing with, like, hopefully your friends are nice enough to say, you know what, I'll help you out with that. Oh, by the way, and most people are good with that, but it is your responsibility to keep track of your triggers. So when you play that. And I love this next card, Una, Queen of the Fae. She is so beautiful, and she's a fairy, and she's a wizard. Oh my goodness, she's a flying 5/5. So 3 and 3 hybrid mana for blue and black. So she does cost 6. However, she has this really cool ability. For X and a hybrid mana, you get to choose a color. Target opponent exiles the top X cards of their library. For each card of the chosen color exiled this way, create a 1/1 blue and black fairy rogue creature token with flying. Super great if someone's playing monocolored. I choose red, Sean.
Yes.
Or blue, or green.
Or green, yeah.
Or any color, really. You play all the colors. We both do. Anyways, whatever X is, that's how many cards they're going to put into their library, and you get to create a bunch of little flying black fairy rogues that can swing in, and hopefully, if you have your commander out, they all mill for
Hopefully
every
it gives
damage.
you a really cool token for this.
Yeah,
Commander deck.
give your commander out. They're 2/2s.
Oh yeah, that's right. Man. Una's Black Guard for 1 and a black. It's a little 1/1 flying fairy rogue, of course. And each other rogue you control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. Whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it deals combat damage to a player, that player discards a card. All those little rogues you're going to make with the Queen of the Fae are going to be 2/2s doing damage to people's face, and they're going to have to get rid of cards. It's just not very nice.
We move on to a goblin. He's an ugly goblin because
rogue,
he's a stink drinker bandit. I don't know what tequila. He has prowl, which means that you can pay him for 2 if you played him in your second main phase after you've done combat damage. When a rogue you control attacks, if it isn't blocked, it gets +2/+1 until the end of turn. So they might not want to block your creatures because they're big and they're going to do bad things to them. But if they don't, then they get extra damage. So it's pretty good.
It just puts all this drama on the field there. Sir Conrad the Grim, he's for 3 and 2 black, a 5/4, one of my favorite cards in Eldraine. He is a human knight. Whenever another creature dies or a creature card is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature card leaves your graveyard, Sir Conrad the Grim deals 1 damage to each opponent. Plus, he's got a little thing on there that for 1 and a black, you can have each player put the top card of their library into their graveyard. So, yeah, you're going to do a lot of damage with him.
Notorious Throng for 3 and a blue is a tribal sorcery rogue. So it is a sorcery that's also a rogue. Anyways, you put X 1/1 black fairy rogue creature tokens onto the battlefield or into play, where X is the damage dealt to your opponents this turn. If Notorious Throng's prowl cost was paid, take an extra turn after this one. Of course, the prowl cost in this case is more expensive. So it does cost you a little bit more if you want to take an extra turn, but that might be just what you need to win
Finish the game.
At the very least, if you decide to just play this as is, X will be the damage that you dealt this turn. And there's nothing wrong with getting some more little 1/1 Black Fairy Rogues.
That's right. Everywhere. They're everywhere. Scythe Claw for 5. It's a artifact, a living weapon. That so a living weapon is when the equipment enters the battlefield, you put a 0/0 black germ creature token out with so the equipped creature gets +1/+1, so it becomes a 1/1 basically with this equipment on it. And whenever it deals combat damage to a player, that player loses half of his or her life rounded up. So yeah, you can let your little germ die and put this on one of your unblockable things.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's what we would
that's
recommend.
A lot of life
Just swing with
that
it.
This person is going to lose.
Yeah. Soaring Thought Thief is one of the new ones. He is just a blue and a black for a 1/3 flash flying, which is awesome in and of itself. But as long as an opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard, which they probably will, rogues you control get +1/+0. He buffs up your rogues, and whenever one or more rogues you control attacks, not just does damage, just attacks, each opponent mills 2 cards. For each rogue.
Yeah. No, it's one or
Whenever,
more.
one or more.
Yeah,
So it's just
you
2.
only get to do 2.
It's just 2.
But still.
He's got flash and flying.
Yeah.
Play him on the end of your turn.
Exactly.
Swing with him the next turn.
Or play them during combat. And so then all
Or,
your
yes,
rogues
yeah.
get buffed up, and so you're going to do even more damage. Yay. So then we've got some other cards, win conditions, things like that on theme. So this deck has a few other kinds of win conditions in there. So just when they think they figured you out, you're going to sneak attack and get them in a different way. And so that's why we have some of these cards. We kind of tried to group them together so that you can see those other win conditions that these things can do. So the formula is 10, but this deck has what we think is 23 because on their own, these cards don't make a huge impact, but if you get them with other cards in this section and in the high impact section, they're just crazy. So yeah, so we'll start with the Night Howler for 1 and a 2 black. It's a 0/0, but has Bestow for 2 and a black, so you can play this onto another creature as an enchantment. But regardless, it's Night Howler and enchanted creature each get +X/+X, where X is the number of creature cards in all graveyards.
Another one of
So
those.
yeah,
Including yours.
yeah.
It's great. And Bone Hoarder is right on theme there as well. It's a 4 mana cost artifact. It's a living weapon as well, which again means when it comes on the battlefield, you create a little germ token, and then that 0/0 germ gets +X/+X, where X is the number of creature cards in all graveyards. And then you can just, if your little germ happens to die, you can just keep equipping that to something else until someone destroys that equipment.
Then the Ogre Slumlord for 3 and 2 black. It's a 3/3, and whenever another non-token creature dies, so including theirs, you may create a 1/1 black rat creature token, and your rats have death touch. So it's just another get in their way, slow them down, make a mess kind of card.
Fairy Vandals, I love this card. It happens to be in a lot of my decks. It's just a little 1/2 for 2. It has flash, it has flying, which is great. And whenever you draw your second card each turn, put a 1/1 counter on Fairy Vandals. And that draw does not have to be on your turn, it can be on their turn. So if you have that other notion card that steals everybody's draws, then you're going to be drawing on theirs. Well, they won't be playing their draw cards, but
I don't know, it's just, yeah.
it's great.
It gets big fast.
It gets big.
It's happened. Changeling Outcast for just a 1 black. It's a 1/1 changeling, so it's every creature type. So it could be Fairy Rogue, and it can't block and it can't be blocked. So here's one of your unblockables that you're going to get in there, do the damage, do the card draw thing, do all that stuff. It's going to do some work for you.
Yep. Another on the theme of unblockable, we have Whirler Rogue, which is 2 and 2 blue for a little 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, you get to create 2 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature tokens with flying, which is great. And then you get to tap 2 untapped artifacts, which could be those, and target creature can't be blocked this turn. So you just get to make something else blockable. Maybe it's your germ that you just made ginormous.
Triton Shorestalker, same thing. It's a little 1/1 for 1 that can't be blocked. A Merfolk Rogue. So there's a whole rogue synergy. Get all buffed up there.
Slitherblade, a 1 mana cost, 1/2 rogue that can't be blocked. Again, millie.
You're swinging with these. Invisible Stalker, a 1/1 for 1 and a blue that has hexproof, and it is unblockable as well. So
this is the
good luck
one
trying to get rid of
that
it.
you should attach your living
Yeah.
weapon to once your germ dies.
True.
Because it's hexproof. Jinx. You owe me beer. Moraine River Prowler for 2 and a blue is a human rogue. It can't block, but it also can't be blocked. And when you cast it from your graveyard, as long as you control a black or you can cast it from your graveyard as long as you control a black or green permanent, which you will control a black permanent.
Mm-hmm.
Now remember, land is not a color, so your land does not count. It has to be a token or a creature or an enchantment, anything but land.
Master Thief for 2 and 2 blue. It's a 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, gain control of target artifact for as long as you control the Master Thief. He steals their living weapons or their awesome swords or whatever, their soul rings, whatever.
So many things you could steal. Frog Tosser. Banneret.
Just don't even know.
Goblins are weird.
Goblin rogue.
Frog
Black
Tosser.
goblins are the weirdest.
He's 2 mana cost 1/1 with haste, and goblin spells and rogue spells cost 1 less to cast. The goblin is irrelevant, although there are a few other goblins in this, but the rogue spells costing 1 less to cast helps you with, I guess this could have gone in mana ramp.
I suppose.
Yeah,
That's true.
It could fit in there because it's helping you cost less. Yeah.
Stolen Identity is for 4 and 2 blue, a sorcery that create a token that's a copy of target artifact or creature. Could be bad. And Cipher is then you may exile the spell card encoded on a creature you control. Whenever that creature deals combat damage to a player, its controller may cast a copy of the encoded card without paying its mana cost. So you put this onto another creature of yours when you're done, and then you can cast it if that creature deals damage, which you're going to do. So you can do this again. That's just silly.
Yeah. Just keeps going. Keep it stealing others' identities.
Oh my gosh, it's insane.
Marsh Flitter for 3 and a black. It's a 1/1 flyer, and when it enters the battlefield, you get to create 2 little 1/1 black goblin rogue creature tokens. And then you can sacrifice a goblin. There's other goblins in this deck, but probably these ones. And it becomes a 3/3 until the end of the turn with flying. Nothing wrong with that.
Scary.
Sometimes you just can't get through when you're on the ground.
And then we have Zulaport Cutthroat for 1 and a black. It's a 1/1 human rogue ally. And whenever it or another creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So it's just kind of adding, it's just another rogue. This is one that's not contributing a lot to the overall theme of the deck, but he's still a rogue. They're not going to want to kill your creatures. So, yeah.
Endless Obedience for 4 and 2 black is a sorcery. It looks like she got her dress ripped in battle, so I don't know. The wind is blowing it, I guess. It has Convoke, which means that you can tap your creatures to help pay for its mana cost. 1 for each colorless, so up to 4. And then you can put a target creature from a graveyard onto the battlefield. And again, it's a graveyard, so it doesn't have to be yours.
Then we've also got Rise from the Grave for 4 and a black. Put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. That creature is a black zombie in addition to its other colors and types.
Yep, awesome.
Crazy.
So this next one is only in this commander deck. So for now, Whisper Steel Dagger for 2 and a black. It's an artifact equipment. It gives something +2/+0. Whenever the equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you may cast a creature spell from that player's graveyard this turn. You may spend mana as though it were any color of mana to cast that spell. So basically, you're going to steal something from their graveyard. You do have to pay for it. You do have to cast it, but you can use your mana as if it was any. And again, let's just put this on an unblockable.
It's just such a creepy looking card.
It is kind of creepy looking.
He's killed this monster and he's taken the essence of the monster, the blood of the monster, to make his own monster. I'm guessing is kind of the theme.
Creepy.
Extract from darkness for 3, a blue and a black, a little sorcery, and each player puts the top 2 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. Then put a creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. Mm-hmm. Don't have to pay, just do it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, while you're on that, Fated Return, 4 and 3 black
Yep.
is an instant. Put a target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. Oh, by the way, it gains indestructible. And if it's your turn, you get to scry 2.
That's insane.
It does cost 7.
Oh, here, let me just get this blocker.
Let me just get
An
this.
indestructible blocker.
Yeah, indestructible
Thanks a lot.
blocker. Yes, play it. It's an instant. You play it in combat, and that's what you would do with it. You would get a
Yes.
blocker that gains indestructible. Because it doesn't gain haste or anything. You can't just bring it out and then swing with it. It's for being blocker.
Mm-hmm. Black Blade Reforged for 2. It is a legendary artifact. I really like this art on this thing. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each land you control. If you equip a legendary creature, it's only 3. A regular creature is 7, but you're going to have legendaries out. There's legendaries in there, and your commander is legendary as well. So, again, another way to just get in there and deal some damage and do all that card draw shenanigans.
Yep. Obelisk of Erd. I'm so happy this is in this deck because I need this card. Obelisk of Erd enters the battlefield. You choose a creature type, and creatures you control of the chosen type get +2/+2. It has Convoke, so you can pay all 6 of it with your creatures. If you have a whole bunch of little fairy rogues, you can just tap them all and play this, and now they all get +2/+2. If you have your commander out, they've already got +1/+1. So all of a sudden, your rogues are getting super big, and they're flyers. It's just going to be awesome. When we have, I know we're not at tweaks yet, but we're almost there. We didn't put a lot of other cards like this in the tweaks, but we'll just mention now that you can search for other cards like Icon of Ancestry. There's lots of cards out there that you choose a creature type or you choose a color, and then creatures or whatever of that chosen color, it buffs them up. So this is an example. If you want to make your rogues bigger, then this is a good way to do it if you're wanting to tweak in that way.
Mm-hmm. Merfolk Wind Robber for 1. It's a little 1/1 flying Merfolk Rogue, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, that player mills a card. So it's helping you get that whole mill thing going. And you can sacrifice it and draw a card yourself and activate that ability only if an opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard. So you're doing lots of damage. Bring it back later.
Yeah. Did I miss something? Nope, that's the last one. We're on to the lands.
Yeah.
So this deck, yes, it does definitely have 38 lands, but there are not a lot of specialty lands in this deck. First one, I guess, is Command Tower. It was the one page at a time.
Yeah.
Command Tower. It taps for any color in your commander's color identity. And then we have Dimir Aqueduct, Dimir Guildgate, and Submerged Boneyard that both tap for either black or blue, or in the case of Dimir Aqueduct, it taps for both. You do have to bounce a land back to your hand in order to get that, but that's fine. You'll have lots of land. So, yeah.
Yeah, and Dismal Backwater is the life gain one. When it comes in, it's tapped, but that's good. And then same with Jawar, I don't know, War Island Refuge.
Yeah, we talked about, how do you say that?
I don't know.
It's either jar or war. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
a gaining life one as well. And then Myriad Landscape, that's going, you can sacrifice it and go and get one of your 2 basic land cards if the type that you need. So that's share land type, so you have to get both
2 islands or 2 swamps.
Yeah. And then Rogue's Passage, you want that in this deck for sure, because you want to make your creatures unblockable.
And I mean, it's called Rogue's Passage. It is a rogue deck.
That's right, there you go. And then we've got 15 islands and 15 swamps, so it's a pretty basic land package, so you could definitely do some tweaking there for sure. So
I think Rogue's Passage should be in every commander deck personally, but
yeah,
you need unblockable. It's a good card.
True.
It's a good card. It's worth picking up for just some of these staples that are in there. So now we're on to the tweaks, which is the fun part. So if you've gotten this far, thank you so much for joining us. We hope that you have a better idea of how to play this right out of the box. We always recommend you play with your deck 3 or 4 times before you decide to tweak, so you know what what it does that you like,
Yeah.
and because there's lots of ways to tweak this deck. So figure out what it is that you like that it does, figure out what you don't like that it's not doing for you that you would wish it did, and then tweak from there. But there's a few things that we pulled out that we thought it might need. So the first one is another rogue that is new from the new set. It's got flash and flying. It is called Nemana Sky Dancer for 2 and a black. It's a 2/1. And when it enters the battlefield, target opponent mills 2 cards. So it's right on theme with the milling, and it's black, and they can't just
flying.
put every card in the commander deck. So it's flying. It's a great little card that you could add to this.
And another little rogue from M21 is the Thieves Guild Enforcer for 1. It's a 1/1 with flash as well. Whenever it or another rogue enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent mills 2 cards. It's annoying as anything right now in standard, and yeah, that would be annoying in this deck as well. And as long as an opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard, Thieves Guild Enforcer gets +2/+1 and has Death Touch. So it's an enforcer, all right.
Yeah, it's a nice little card.
Yeah.
Could definitely fit into this deck well. So Selhoff Occultist is from Jumpstart, and 2 and a blue for a 2/3. And when it or another, when it or another creature dies, target player mills a card. So there's a lot of times where you're like, you know what, I just need to swing in and hopefully some of my stuff will hit you so that you have to mill. Now they're being punished if they kill your creatures, they're going to mill anyway. So
You get any other creature.
yeah,
It doesn't have to be yours.
yeah. So
It's
if you kill
crazy.
theirs or they kill yours, that's a good card for this.
Yeah, there's a little bit of the life, you gain life, like benefits of creatures dying in this deck, so we thought we'd add another one, like Bastion of Remembrance for 2 and a black. It's an enchantment. When it enters, you create a little 1/1 human soldier creature token, little blocker dude for you. Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So it's similar to the Zulaport Cutthroat. It's helping you out, staying alive so you can do your damage.
And like any good tribal deck, putting some changelings in there is always a good option. Karen Wanderer is great for this deck. It's black, 4 and a black for a 4/4. It's a changeling, which means it's every other creature type. So it is a rogue, it is a fairy, it is a goblin. It takes advantage
Whatever.
of all of those things. And as long as a creature with flying is in your graveyard, then this has flying. The same is true for fear, first strike, double strike, death touch, haste, landwalk, lifelink, protection, reach, trample, shroud, and vigilance.
It's in anybody's graveyard.
Anyone's, thank you, yes. So ultimately, this creature is going to not only just steal, you're not only going to steal things from their graveyard, you're going to steal abilities from their graveyard if you put this in. So we think that this would be a great addition.
Oh yeah, for sure. And Ghostly Pilfer is for 1 and a blue, a 2/1. When it becomes untapped, you may pay 2 if you do draw a card, so it's a little bit more card draw in there, plus it's a rogue. And whenever an opponent casts a spell from anywhere other than their hand, you get to draw a card. So you're punishing them for doing any sort of shenanigans.
Yeah, we were talking about needing some card draw.
Yeah.
So.
And you can discard a card and it can't be blocked, so it helps with that as well.
So I think this one's probably not in there because it's a little bit expensive, but Brazen Borrower, although there's some expensive cards in there, but Brazen Borrower is another fairy rogue. It's 2 blue and any color for the actual fairy portion of it, but this one is an adventure card. So basically, if you're not familiar with adventures, you can choose to play Petty Theft as an instant, which returns a non-land permanent to its owner's hand. And then this creature goes on an adventure, and then you can cast it again. If you do decide to cast it just as a creature right off the bat, then you lose the ability to do the instant, but you're not going to do that because you've watched our video. And you're smart.
That's right. Drown in the Loch is a really great card from Eldraine that is for 1 blue and 1 black. It's an instant where you can choose 1, so you counter target spell with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of cards in its controller's graveyard. Or you can destroy target creature with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of cards in a controller's graveyard. So, yeah, that for 2, you're going to be able to destroy something up to 6 mana or something like that. Like you you're putting lots in their graveyard, so you can use this really cheap removal, really cheap counter spell.
And we were also talking about some of the mana rocks and mana generators that you might want to put in this deck. And we thought Talisman of Dominance might be a good addition to this deck if you have it or can find it. It adds 1 mana to your mana pool, so it can just tap. But you can also pay a life and add either blue or black. So it's right on colors if you need it to be. There's nothing wrong with paying a life to get the color that you need until you're all set up. So great addition.
And if you were lucky enough to open a pack of Ultimate Masters and get Bitter Blossom, or you got a really good birthday money or something like that, I don't know.
Or you've been playing that long and you just have it.
You still have Bitter Blossom for 1 and a black. It is a fairy tribal enchantment that sits out there at the beginning of your upkeep. You lose 1 life and create a little black fairy rogue creature token with flying. Just adding to your whole fairy rogue shenanigans.
Really good with Commander because you have a larger life pool to deal with, right? Rankle. Rankle's a little fairy rogue as well. I love my Rankle. He's 2 and 2 black. He's a little 3/3. He has haste, he has flying, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, choose any number and you can, each player discards a card, each player loses a life and draws a card, or each player sacrifices a creature. You can choose all 3 of them. Remember, that affects you too. But if you have a bunch of fairy rogues on the battlefield, you can, it's fine. It's fine.
Sacrifice all sorts of creatures. This is a card, Bident of Thassa, that I've been trying to get for a little bit. It's for 2 and 2 blue. It's a legendary enchantment artifact, so it's an enchantment and an artifact. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. And for 1 and a blue, you can tap this and create creatures your opponents control attack this turn if able. So yeah, it's a...
Force them to attack.
Yeah, it's a really useful card that I'd like to have in my collection.
Black Bloom Rogue is another new one that's coming out, and this is one of the modal land cards. So not only is it a human rogue, it is a 2/3 with menace, which is great in and of itself. It gets +3/+0 as long as an opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard, which they will because you're milling them. And if you decide that you need a land and you don't want to play this, then it could be a land. So you would choose which side to play it on. You put it onto the battlefield in that way. So,
and then we have my love to hate card. I have played this card.
Yeah, but we are recommending it.
But we highly recommend it for this deck because it fits so well. Agent of Treachery for 5 and 2 blue. He's got to have a home somewhere. He's been kicked out of everywhere else. It's a 2/3 human rogue. When it enters the battlefield, gain control of target permanent. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 3 or more permanents you don't own, draw 3 cards. I always forget about that.
Yeah.
So you've stolen a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah, that could be good card draw.
Yep.
I always forget about that.
Yep.
Interesting.
And because hopefully you'll be adding some card draw as well as getting some benefits off of all of these other card draws that are staying on your battlefield, you will probably want something like Reliquary Tower. There's a few other cards out there that also make it so that you have no maximum hand size. There's nothing worse than having to discard if you don't want to. Again, Shauna made a really good point that sometimes, especially a lot of these, you can return things from your graveyard, so you can get it back anyway.
Put those creatures in your bin.
Exactly. Or you might want something in your graveyard so that it has benefit, but there's nothing wrong with having a Reliquary Tower so you have no maximum hand size. So we thought that would be a good land.
And Castle Vantress as well is a really good land to have if you can get one, because you can pay 2 and 2 blue and scry 2, so you do that on their turn or at your upkeep and be able to see what you're going to draw. Really works really well.
So that is it for this time. I hope that you guys have enjoyed our deep dive into this deck. We are super excited about it. We hope that we've managed to make you super excited about it as well. We hope that our tweaks will help you make this an even better deck than it already is. It's pretty good in and of itself. Thank you so much for watching and listening. We are available on YouTube and podcast, anywhere that you would like to download us. We are also on Twitch and we stream almost every day. If you can feel free to connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We'd love to hear from you. Give us your thoughts. What would you add to this deck? What would you take out? And that's it for this time. In the meantime, tap those magic cards and have fun doing it. Bye, guys.
Bye.